What's up guys, Sean here, and today I want to talk to you about how Mayor Bill de Blasio and his wife are scamming New York City taxpayers in the name of fighting mental illness. But first, let's talk about your online security and privacy. Capital One, the European Central Bank, and the great state of Texas have all within the last month been hacked in what are called major data breaches. These hackers are clearly getting out of hand, and stories like this should serve as reminders that we need to monitor our own security online. And one of the best ways to do that is to get yourself a VPN, or virtual private network. VPNs create a secure connection to a network via the internet to protect your data. VPNs can help shield you, whether you're on a public Wi-Fi network, whether you're in a foreign country and you're worried about surveillance, or if you just want a more secure connection right here at home. And the VPN I use is Virtual Shield. It's super easy to install and really easy to use. You just go to their website, download the app, install it to your browser, and then with one click, you're protected. And right now, just for viewers of this channel, you guys can go to virtualshield.com/actualjustice, get yourself a 30-day free trial, see if you like the service, and if you decide to buy a plan, you can get 30% off all of the plans that Virtual Shield offers, even their premium ones. Come on, you have nothing to lose by going to the top link in the description box of this video and signing up for a free trial. And you can gain online security and peace of mind by doing so. One of the most frustrating things about calling yourself a libertarian online is that at some point, whether it be in the comments, whether it be on Twitter, or whatever social media network that particular person uses, at some point, somebody will contact you and make a ridiculous argument based on the premise that you support zero government whatsoever. Even though that is not what libertarians stand for. Libertarians support a much more limited role for government and typically just want the government to secure property rights, regulate air and water pollution, and take care of the people that fall through the gaps that private charity can't take care of. While we generally agree that private charity is far superior to government welfare payments, there are certain instances, specifically in the case of the mentally ill, where many libertarians have come to the conclusion that it is government's role to play to take care of people who cannot mentally function enough to take care of themselves. And the reason many libertarians have adopted this position is not only for philosophical reasons, but just by what we've seen in the real world since the closing of most of the mental health hospitals throughout the country. Now, in my view, the reason that the mentally ill don't get the same support via private charity as, let's say, cancer or any other disease is because mentally ill people tend to come off as unsympathetic, especially severely mentally ill people. We tend to see these people as those who talk to themselves, those who are violent against themselves, and those who are potentially violent against others. A lot of these severely mentally ill people are homeless, so they're out on the streets. And just keeping it real, homeless people aren't the most attractive, nor are they the most sympathetic bunch of people within the United States of America. Now, to be clear, I'm not telling you all this so that you can come away with the impression that I am somehow more moral than you, or I care more than the average person about the severely mentally ill. I'm a New Yorker, which means that on a single day of going through the city, on the subway or on the street, I probably avoid more of the seriously mentally ill than the average American will encounter in a year. And I understand people who think that the seriously mentally ill, and especially the seriously mentally ill homeless, are scary and or dangerous. I've had a situation where I was talking to a female friend of mine and a homeless person literally got up, ran up behind her, grabbed her hair, spit in it, and then took off running away. But it's important to understand that these people are sick, and in New York City we have about 250,000 people who suffer from serious mental illness. 90,000 of those 250,000 go completely untreated. These are typically the people that you see on the street with untreated mental illnesses. So when I first heard the announcement about New York City's new initiative to combat mental health issues in the city of New York, I thought, even though it's Bill de Blasio and he's definitely not somebody I support nor somebody that I trust, that it was maybe a program that I could get behind. Then I saw this promo for it.
When we get hurt, no one tells us.
Lose the crutches, it's all in your head.
If someone is seriously ill, we don't say,
just feel less pneumonia-y.
So how is it that when
I'm not able to sleep at night,
I'm anxious all the time,
Drinking is the only way I can feel good these days.
Seems like I'm arguing with the people I love nonstop.
Now, there are several problems with this promo that you can notice right away. Number one, this is an online promo. If most of the people who should be targeted with a mental health intervention in the city of New York are untreated homeless people, what good does an online promo do for those people? The second thing you might have noticed about this is that there's a lot in it that lets you believe that this campaign is more about removing the stigma around mental illness rather than treating mental illness.
Or other issues related to our mental health. Too many people pretend we can just
snap out of it.
And part of the way that these campaigns tend to go about removing the stigma is broadening out what we're talking about, what we should be focusing on, to much milder conditions. We see alcoholism, we see anxiety, we see allusions to depression. Now, I'm not saying that we should view people who suffer from these milder forms of mental illness as somehow inferior, but what I am saying is that that's not the core of the problem. The people who are severely mentally ill and go untreated and end up on the street and end up in our prison system, those people are the problem. Those are the people that need help.
This affects nearly all of us. 1 in 5 adult New Yorkers are dealing with a mental health disorder every year.
And this is where I completely jumped off board. 1 out of every 5 New Yorkers suffer from a mental health issue every single year. What does that even mean? This is what I'd like to dub a perfect example of political inflation. Now, if somebody else has used this term to describe a phenomena in the past, then sad day for them, because I'm taking credit for it, because I think it perfectly describes what we're dealing with anytime we get one of these 1 in 5 situations from a state, federal, or local government. So what political inflation is when a political group or an activist group inflates the number of people who are victimized by a certain situation so that any action taken to alleviate those who are victimized by that situation ends up disproportionately not helping the people who actually need it. A simpler way to understand this concept is that anytime you see a big dumb number, you're probably going to have a big dumb government program to address that big dumb number. And Thrive New York is a perfect example of a government program that ends up hurting its intended victims while giving out handouts and freebies to would-be Democratic voters. First of all, it's important to point out that Thrive New York is currently being run by Mayor Bill de Blasio's wife, because I guess that's what we do in America. If you run for major political office and win, that somehow makes your spouse qualified to run a $850 billion government program. And the program itself tends to operate just like a program being run by somebody whose only qualification is being married to the guy who won an elected office.
Change the culture. Let's make it easier to talk about our mental health. Act early. Investing in prevention gives New Yorkers the tools to weather challenges.
For instance, one of the fatal conceits of this program is that it targets preventative care rather than treatment for the severely mentally ill. Now, on paper, that might sound like a good idea to you, because you might think, for physical medical ailments, it's always better to have preventative care rather than treat diseases after the fact. Because in theory, preventing the disease from developing in the first place is much cheaper and much more effective and will ultimately save more lives than treating that disease later. However, many serious mental health disorders don't work that way, and the preventative care model that Bill de Blasio and his wife have put forward clearly is a vote-buying scheme rather than something meant to address the seriously mentally ill. For instance, a key component of this preventative care campaign is the Talk to Your Baby campaign, which encourages parents and caretakers to talk to and read to their babies when they're in infancy. And the justification for diverting these finite resources to a campaign that promotes talking to, reading to, and singing to babies is that Bill de Blasio and his wife think it's really important to do this because it encourages mental well-being for children in low-income areas. And the effect of aiming this policy so broadly and emphasizing preventative care rather than treatment for the seriously mentally ill is that you have a lot of people participating in rent-seeking behavior. And what that means really quickly is that anytime anyone is giving away money, whether that be a private charity or person, or through a government program, there are going to be people who will align themselves in such a way to get a share of that money. Now, doing so requires you to have a fundamental understanding of how government grants and government money is given out or distributed, and that fundamental understanding is not commonly shared amongst the seriously mentally ill. So because the seriously mentally ill are not particularly good or reliable rent seekers, most of the money that is distributed through Thrive New York doesn't go to them at all. In fact, a recent study of Thrive New York's effectiveness found that only 12% of the money spent on the program goes to the seriously mentally ill, a number representing about $30 million. Now, to give you 2 points of perspective on that $30 million, number one, Thrive New York spends $15 million on social media and TV ads promoting the program. Also, remember, we discussed that there are 90,000 seriously mentally ill people that go completely untreated. And when you divide 90,000 into that $30 million, you come away with a grand total of $333.33 per severely mentally ill person in New York. And those numbers are genuinely shameful. This program is an unmitigated disaster and a vote buying scheme. The fact that most of this money goes to college kids who are stressed about finals, people in low income areas so that they can sing to their babies, while all of these people are on the streets of the city that I live in, while they have severe mental breakdowns on the street and become violent against themselves and others only to end up in our prison system, is absurd. These people need inpatient care. Many of them need to be put in a facility and be put on a drug program that works for them specifically so that they can become the best versions of themselves. 95% of this nearly $1 billion program should be dedicated to the severely mentally ill who are untreated. And the only percentage that is used for marketing shouldn't be to remove stigma. It should be to inform the public that if they see people who are in desperate need of care on the street, that they can call somebody and that person can be taken care of. We don't need a virtue signaling program that's going to make us all feel better about ourselves and do virtually nothing to address the serious problem that we have. We don't need a program that's just a pet project by a woman whose only qualification is that she's married to the guy who is elected to public office to solve this problem. There are people who are in serious need of mental health care interventions, and robbing taxpayers in their name in order to buy votes from college kids and low-income people isn't going to solve the problem. Anyway, that's all I really have for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think about de Blasio and his wife's boondoggle in the comments down below. If you haven't heard, I started a Minds account, minds.com/actualjusticewarrior. Go and subscribe to me over there. If you like this video, then please show me by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content. Share this video because I do think it's important. You can follow me on all my social medias. If you choose to support me, you can do so via one-time donation on Venmo or PayPal, or you can do so monthly via Patreon and Subscribestar. This has been me talking about Thrive New York's wasteful spending. Till next time.